Okay, so Christina, we got this information last week that the CDC did this study, and then I talked with Dr. Candace Jones, who's a pediatrician in our area, and I was asking her, like, what does this diagnosis mean for parents and for kids? And after hearing from her, I thought, well, I really need to hear from somebody who has had the diagnosis. So, I mean, take us back. How old were you when you got your diagnosis?
I was diagnosed when I was 13, which is considered lucky because there are kids that literally get diagnosed in infancy. But yeah, I was 13.
And what was that experience like for you? Were you in the hospital? Were you just at a doctor's appointment?
That experience was extremely traumatic for me. I was in school that day and I got really sick and didn't know why. And I've always been the kind of person to just kind of push forward. So I tried to do that. And eventually it got to a point where I was so sick and dizzy and throwing up that I needed to be taken by ambulance to the hospital, and then was tested for anything and everything all day long. And finally, at the end of the day, I was told that it was type 1 diabetes. And the hardest part for me and for my family was when I asked the doctor if there was a cure, and the doctor said no. And if you don't take care of this, this is something that you could die from.
And you were 13.
I was 13 and I heard that, and my parents had to hear the doctor tell their daughter that.
Mm. And from then on, your life has been different, right?
It's been extremely different. Yeah. Upon my diagnosis, I felt extremely alone. Teenagers a lot of times already feel that no one gets them. And I truly felt that no one got me because I didn't know anyone else that had diabetes. But the greatest change came from when I decided to make something different happen in the situation. And I started a club that eventually became a nonprofit, that I did in high school to try to bring more people together, teach people about diabetes, and ultimately it helped to create this really beautiful community that still exists today.
It's probably hard to pin down, but what is the number one thing that you hear from kids who join your nonprofit and are feeling that weight of the diagnosis? Is there a common feeling that all of you kind of share?
Yes, I think I can speak for most diabetics in general, but especially kids, when I say that death is something that we literally think about every single day. And so this, I think, can be related to COVID because we're in a time where people are thinking about death every day. We're hearing about the numbers, we're hearing what could happen, the consequences of like not wearing a mask or wearing a mask and all of these things. And it's that unknown that's really scary. Diabetes is the exact same way. We are always being faced every morning when we wake up with the idea that if we do not take the proper steps, checking our blood sugars and giving insulin, that one decision alone can determine whether we're going to live another day.
It's so scary.
It is. And something that I've noticed is that when kids are diagnosed with diabetes, they grow up really fast. It is possible to live a very meaningful life. It's something that I speak on is, continuing to step outside of your comfort zone and do what you want to do, even if you have diabetes. At the end of the day, though, if you look at a kid who's been diagnosed with diabetes, you'll see that they are like an adult in a little kid's body.
Oh my gosh. That is the best way to describe it. When I met some of the kids at Children's Congress who were
Yes.
talking, it was like I was talking to a full grown adult, and I think one of the girls was only 8 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is forcing you to kind of leave behind some of that fun, carefree part of life. And I can't imagine. The only other question I had for you was, during the pandemic, I know they've said that it's been harder on people who have diabetes. What are some of the struggles that you faced?
So in general, when it comes to illnesses with diabetes, a lot of times it just takes a little bit longer for a diabetic, for our immune system to fight the same way and get through the illness. I think a really conflicting thing that's been on the surface in the diabetes community from what I've heard is just that there's a lot of mixed information as to whether diabetes actually does make COVID worse when you experience it or not. And so it has left a lot of us in this gray area again of the unknown. So for me personally, I take every precaution I can because I just don't know.
Yeah. It's a big question mark.
So I would say if you know someone with diabetes or you yourself have diabetes, whether it's type 1, type 2, gestational, during this time, please know that you are not alone. There are so many people who are going through this. And even if you don't have diabetes, but you love someone who does, please know that feeling of the unknown and the uncertainty, it's there for all of us. And I think that if we can step outside of ourselves for a moment and just be there for one another without judgment and just be there, I think that that's going to be a great step. So if you are in Central Florida, we have the nonprofit is Type Zero Foundation, and you can find us on Facebook. Just look up Type Zero Foundation, completely spelled out. We have a Facebook group that you can join. We are always in communication, talking about the newest things going on. You can ask questions there. And also we have monthly outings. We just did a recent Pate Night, which was incredibly fun. It was hybrid, so you could join virtual or in person based on your comfort level and where you're located. But we're always trying to find ways to create that everyday support. So it is there. Take the step if you need it, and know that you have a whole community who's going to back you up.
Awesome. There's some hope. I love that.